This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
I mean, you know, we picked a hell of a time to start a podcast. And, you know, we started it last year, and it's been a challenge, I got to say. You know, the first half was great, and then this second half, it hasn't been easy, right? Because it's a cross of life and sports meeting each other on a consistent basis. And it's sad, right? Because we've got to go through this. We've got to argue about it. We've got to fight. We've got to watch some of these disgusting videos about the behavior that's going on in this country. And we're at a crossroad. And yesterday, you heard the Bucks, and they made their statement, and they ended up, you know, it's interesting because this thing caught everybody by surprise, you know, and I lived it yesterday myself. We had our own version of it while we were at the at Inter Miami Stadium in Fort Lauderdale last night, and we're awaiting the start of that game, and we already knew there was a buzz about the players possibly quitting. And so the Bucks started it. You just heard their message. And listen, if you're not black, you can't experience it. You don't know. If you're a minority, then you've experienced some kind of bias in your life. You know what I mean? But it's nothing like what the black community is going through for hundreds of years now, okay? Let's not just talk about what went on, you know, just recently or with George Floyd or Breonna Taylor or any, but this has been going on for a long time. And when LeBron James comes out and tweets, F it, I'm done with this, you know, it just gets to a point where you've had enough. You know what I'm saying? And I don't blame people for drawing the line. And that's kind of what the NBA players did, because somebody's got to do it, right? And right now in the general black community, it's harder for them to do it because they don't have cameras on them. And they don't have the power and they don't have the influence. These guys do. And for those of you that think that, well, you know, this isn't going to make much of an impact, maybe it doesn't. But you've got to try. And when you start affecting the pockets of the owners, which then in turn you're affecting the pockets of the TV companies, which then you're also affecting the pockets of sponsors. There are commitments that they're not living up to because the game wasn't played. There's a lot of people that are losing out, and a lot of those people are in positions of power. A lot of those people contribute to a lot of the campaigns that put some of the elected officials in place. And so that's where, you know, that's where they now, you know, players I think are hoping that this will then impact them, and then they will put pressure on the elected officials who will then make the changes in their, you know, respective police departments and get the justice that a lot of these families deserve in a lot of these incidents that have gone on. And so, look, man, do I really want to be talking about this? No. Do you think I've been wanting to talk about this for the last couple of months? No. I want to talk sports, man. I mean, that's what I got into. You know, that's what I've been at for 30 years. It's sports. And
I've known you for 38, 40 years. This morning, bro, I could tell. And we've been together doing this since back March 27th last year. Starting a show, I have not seen you this down, disappointed. You know what I mean? Yeah. Your mood is, that's why I said, are you okay, man?
Yeah.
I can see it's eating at your heart.
Yeah, because this is no fun, man. This is not fun. I don't want to talk about these kind of things. I'd rather just have some fun and talk about, you know, the Heat playing their next series and talking about the Dolphins getting prepared for the season and the Marlins playing and, everything else. There's so much. Inter last night, it could have been 2 in a row, with Nashville next, the expansion team. And I think Miami's better than Nashville as it is. I think they're going to beat Nashville. It could have been 3 in a row. There's so many things that I could be talking about, and we've got to address this and we've got to talk about it. And it's a shame. And now it's going to affect everything because, it's going to trickle down. There's already several teams in the NFL that aren't going to practice today. The Dolphins are off today, so they don't have to deal with that monster today, but they may have to deal with it tomorrow.
One that I know for sure before I left, Redskins, no practice, and I'm sure
there's a few
once the domino falls.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no, there's several already as it is, and we'll see how much this affects in the NFL. But I understand what went on yesterday. I understand what's going on in this country, and nobody likes to be abused. You know what I mean? It's just who the hell loves that? Who wants to be a part of that? Nobody. And at one point or another, you've got to say enough is enough. And you've got to make some kind of a stand. And you've got to be able, and you got to be willing to risk something. And I commend the NBA players for that. And I commend MLS soccer. I wish they would have been a little bit more organized because they made Orlando and Nashville look pretty silly last night. And to give you a little insight on what happened, we were at the stadium. I was at the stadium early because, as you all know, I had to go. Those of you that were watching yesterday, I had to go to the meeting.
How did you make your meeting?
I made it with I made it with 3 minutes to spare. But anyway, so I had to go, and I was there for a while. And as we were getting closer to pregame, we get word that the players are discussing a boycott because of everything that had gone on in the NBA. But they were in the process of getting in contact with Orlando and Nashville and talk to their player reps to try to get them to, hey, we're going to boycott, and the rest of the MLS is going to boycott.
A unified front.
Right. And I don't know what happened because that part I don't know about, whether they were able to connect with them, whether they said yes or no, or whether they weren't able to connect with them. But the Orlando and Nashville game went on. And so we were told that the belief was that if they couldn't reach Orlando, Nashville in time to cancel that game, that all the other games would be played. So when Nashville and Orlando started, our pregame show started because our pregame show started at 7:30. Nashville, Orlando started at 7:30. So when we saw that the game started, we were like, okay, well, then, we're doing a pregame show for a real game then. And sure enough, right when we were like wrapping up the pregame, I hear Whittingham, like, this doesn't look good, and whatever. And then, okay, we'll throw it to Chris Whittingham, Thomas Rogan, and Fernando Fiore. And we throw it to them, and immediately they come, well, ladies and gentlemen, this doesn't look good right now, this and that. And then we're looking at Pizarro down in the field, and he's on the pitch in his practice uni. And we're like, well, wait a minute. He doesn't have – and we're trying to figure out the starters. Are they dressed? Are they dressed to the nines, ready to play football? And no, they weren't. Some of them weren't. And some of them had that body language like they had tuned out. And I'll tell you, it happened to me yesterday. We're getting ready for the pregame show. And we're hearing, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. I'm like, I'm depressed because it's hard to get up to do a pregame show for a game that isn't going to happen. You know what I'm saying? And then they gave us this little inkling of hope. Well, listen, they're trying to get contact with Orlando, and if they don't, then they'll play. And so when we saw that it started, we felt like, okay, we're going to get a game, and we didn't get the game. And so then they walked off. The only thing is I wish they would have been a little bit more organized. But I'll give the MLS credit because the NHL was the one that looked really bad last night because they just went on with their games and they didn't care and they moved on and, a little sign up there that says Black Lives Matter, whatever.
But just that one game. But they didn't even carry it to the other games.
No.
That was bad.
It was just, I'm just saying it's a bad look for, the NHL, but whatever. It is what it is. What are you going to do? It's a really white sport anyway. So it's, I guess they don't really care that much about it, but because it doesn't affect their world. Most of the guys that are there, it doesn't affect their world. It just, I completely understand what went on. I mean, listen, kind of what happened yesterday with us in soccer. In the NBA, the Magic were on the court warming up while the Bucks were making this decision. And when the Bucks made this decision, I mean, Kyle Korver had to go and apologize. He didn't have to, but he went and apologized to players around the league. And he said, hey, we're sorry about this decision and how we, went for it without really consulting the rest of the league and kind of put everybody in a position. And then most of the people were like, hey, dude, we understand what you're doing. We're good. We're with you. And so there was a lot of unification.